Uncle Mario, Total Media.
This is Ricardo Love.
And this is Bree.
Welcome to Qualified to Love. Qualified to Love. Qualified to Love was created to assist in the creation and growth of whole, functional, effective, authentic, loving, and passionate relationships between Black women and Black men. We know this is more than a philosophical and conceptual construct. The understanding has to be followed in earning the crown by doing the work. Qualified to Love. This is a show about functional, effective, authentic, loving, and passionate relationships between Black men and Black women. However, when we speak of being qualified to love, it is universal. It transcends race, sexual orientation, in all aspects. Love is love, as one of our artists says in a song. We focus on Black male-female relationships because as a people, we are dealing with challenges that no other race has had to do in the recorded history. Our legacy before slavery was interrupted by slavery, and the residual effects of that has been catastrophic on the Black male-female relationship. We have had periods of time like doing segregation where we were able to be by ourselves by force, because of what was going on in society, and we did quite well. Marriage rates were really high, family structures were really high. We did well financially, socially, and everything. Then come forward into mixing and mingling with the rest of Western world, and slowly but surely our relationships deteriorated with a number of attacks upon us that were always there, but we always had, even in slavery time, we jumped a broom and we held on to love between the Black man and the Black woman. When we let certain principles and traditions go, and crack came in by the government, by the way, and destroyed, or I should say helped destroy our relationships, other things, governmental issues, other government interventions with helping Black women financially and trying to keep the man out of the household, all kind of things. It's just a plethora of different things that came against us as Black men and Black women that affected our relationships. However, all relationships have challenges, and qualified to love, and that's qualified, the number two, love, two representing the two people, the man and the woman. And we talk about the original Trinity, which is the man and the woman and the child. And the original Trinity is the Black man and the Black woman creating the child. And out of all that, humanity sprung all the other races and everything that go with it. So, Qualified to Love was created out of failure. My failure, Mr. Ricardo Love, Mr. Hopeless Romantic, that was, so principled about love, never cheating on a woman, just wanting to follow the romantic things that lovers are supposed to do, and it's gonna be happily ever after, right? But no, it's not. So I found out over and over again that it takes more than just the feeling of love. You have to be qualified to love. And out of that failure was birthed an organization what I sought, and I chose to bring others with me to have functional and whole relationships. I joined other groups to learn. I became a staffer with Healing the Wounds. We did college tours, Black male-female relationship tours on all the junior colleges around California, and also community centers and libraries, you name it. And that was done for a number of years. Learned from other groups that weren't necessarily African American, or Landmark Education, shout out to them. Wonderful organization, and went through the entire curriculum for living, the Landmark Forum, the Advanced Forum, and SELP, wonderful organization. And then SIMBA, which is a mentoring organization in the Bay Area, Black male-female mentorship for Black boys and girls. And we had to deal with learning stuff for ourselves so we wouldn't pass on generational dysfunction. And we did a lot of studying psychology, child psychology, psychology in general, just so we wouldn't pass that thing on to them. So here we are today, doing our first audio version of Qualified to Love that we can all learn together. We're not coming as authoritarians of what a relationship is supposed to be or how to make it work. We're coming as students. I am not coming to you. Bree is not coming to you as authorities on this subject. We are all going to learn together. We will be quoting material from renowned relationship therapists and authors on the subject, and so on and so forth. The most important aspect is that we are earnestly trying to learn how to have whole functional relationships, and just being focused on that and being intentional about that is most of the battle. So, Bree, when you think of a whole functional relationship, what comes to mind to you before you even heard about Qualified to Love? Did you even focus on what a whole functional relationship, or how did you even approach a relationship? Did you just like see a guy that you were kind of cute to you, and how was that? Or you waited guys come to you? How did you get into relationships?
That's something that I never really thought about till you just asked that question. I would say, thinking of a functioning relationship, I looked at my mother and my father, and my parents always seemed in sync with each other. My mother did her wifely roles all as far back as I can remember. When she was a mother at home, she would get up in the morning, she would get dressed, put on makeup, put on clothes, and she would be dressed as my father left home. She would be dressed when my father came home. She would have meals together. She kept the family in order. And so when I look at a functional relationship, I always look at my parents. Traditional relationships. Unfortunately, that's not how real life works in 2022. I don't know. When you say that, I don't do a lot of dating, so I don't really know how to answer that.
There could be a number of different reasons, but whatever the attraction source is, one or both of us are attracted to each other. The motivation could be sex. It could be that I truly want a great relationship or whatever. But what ends up happening is a couple of good conversations, and the next thing you know, we're in a situationship. Now, we might label that later on as girlfriend, boyfriend, or even rush to get married. However, when we take a driver's license, we get even a fishing license, we have to take tests. We have to know these things and stuff. Nobody gives us a test to be qualified to love. Anybody can fall in love, but you don't have to be qualified. You just have to just do it. And what we see about that is often doesn't work out. So we're going to take a break right now. And when we come back, we're going to talk about what does it mean to be qualified to love.
Welcome back to Qualified to Love. This is Bree.
And Ricardo Love.
So Ricardo, you've given a really good introduction to the listeners about the foundation of Qualified to Love. And then you asked me a question that I really couldn't answer, but I'd like you to ask me another question so that the listeners can also hear that just because we think we know certain things, we might not always know or be able to answer if the question was put to them.
I wish I could ask you this question fresh so I could get your answer, but I know I've already asked you this question. One of the things that we do when we're asking people to have due diligence and responsible mate selection. Now, that's one of the things that we stress. Like, how do you choose somebody and make sure they're qualified to love you and they're compatible with you? And one of the tools that we use is negotiable and non-negotiable. So I would ask you, in the past and currently, how did you even judge who you were attracted to, and whether when you approached them, like, okay, I like this guy, he's cute, whatever your criteria for even being attracted to somebody is, Like, how did you make up in your mind that I want to possibly pursue a relationship with this person?
Good question. Normally, in pursuing or non-pursuing a situation, normally it's someone approaching me, and immediately I kind of know a yay or nay. Most women know yay or nay. Approach, hey girl, how you doing? Or for me, it's a lot with hygiene, the conversation. Some things are like immediate turn off, body language, and just overall attraction. To me, I think it's just the basic, if there's attraction, if there's not an attraction.
So let's say he's attractive to you. He has enough sense to approach you the right way, whatever that right way is to you. Like, not no, hey baby, are you tired because you've been walking through my mind all day long, a corny line or anything. But he just does the right approach to you for the right time. Because I think that depending on what you are in that moment, the right approach for that moment may be different at a different time. So just say he does those things right. He introduces himself. You know his name. You're looking at him. He's cute. He smells good. His hygiene is good. He has a decent conversation. You're single at the time. He's checking off all the, your shallow list anyway. Maybe he has a sexy voice like mine. But anyway, so they say he checks off all those checklists, and you guys start having conversations. So what happens? Well, let's go by. They say hindsight is 20/20 vision. So in the past, why did you continue from the initial introduction to them to take it to the next level? Did they ask you out on a date, or you gave them your phone number, and then that just escalated? Or
so let's say he met all of my external check boxes. Looks okay, smells okay, doesn't smell like alcohol, because that's really a no-go for me, the alcohol smell. Then it's the getting to know you phase. I like to talk a lot. And to me, people can talk to you for a few minutes. You can hang out with someone for a couple of days, a few minutes, and that's not the real person. If you talk to a person, eventually the real them is going to come out. So that's normally my next thing that I do. I talk, and I talk in lots of questions. I'll ask a lot of questions, and I pay attention to see whether or not the answers are the same or if the answers change. Because people can lie really good when they're, when they have an agenda. But can they stay consistent with it? Can they keep it exactly the same answers, the same responses all the time? Then I start looking for similarities. Do you like this? Do you like that? Do you not like this? Do you not like that? Sometimes a conversation can let you know whether or not you even want to go through the rest of it. And you could just stop it right there. That's probably my next thing is conversation. Lots of conversation before social.
Mm-hmm. Do you find yourself, if he's cuter or he has a better job or whatever your pros are, do you find yourself kind of overlooking some of the other things that you may require or even desire?
Yes and no. Depends on my frame of mind. If I'm in a frame of mind where I just want to hang out, friend being a key word, I might overlook things that normally would be a complete turnoff to me for hangout purposes, but that's strictly social. If it's someone that I'm thinking, I might be interested in for a longer term situation, I don't cut very much slack in my checkoff list because it's really important, because you got to be able to grow, and you can't grow if there's something you already don't like about the person.
So we use the term checkoff list, but one of the tools that we use, and any tool is okay, as long as it helps you get clarity. One of the tools that we use is negotiable and non-negotiable list. So Some examples of non-negotiable, like say you're a fundamentalist Christian, so you might, or Islamic or whatever person. So one of your non-negotiables may be that they have to have the same belief as you. You know, they had to love the Lord. And if they don't love God, they don't believe in you, that might be a non-negotiable to you. You will not compromise on that. And other people, you may like, well, as long as he doesn't disrespect my belief, he doesn't challenge my belief, then that's, so you know, that may be your non-negotiable. Some of your negotiables might be, well, I like them 6 foot tall and they got to be dark skinned, or, you know, I don't like dark skinned, or I don't like bald head men, or don't. Those are non-negotiable. Those are preferences. So you like them 6'1", but he might be 5'10", and you like tall, dark, and handsome, but maybe he's a little lighter and he's 5'10", but he has all these other things going. So that's negotiable. It's not a deal breaker. So negotiable, another thing could be how you could define negotiable and non-negotiables are deal breakers or not deal breakers. However, you want to be really clear about your non-negotiables. And if one of your categories of non-negotiable starts being negotiable, then that's kind of a red flag to yourself. Some women and men, they have unrealistic non-negotiables. Everybody has to define for themselves what their negotiables and non-negotiables are. But I would say that the principles, high quality man should be high character man. Is he a good man today because he has a good job and a good business, and not a good man tomorrow because he loses his job or his business goes bankrupt? What is high quality to you, and what is it based on? So we'll take a break right now, and right after this, we'll go on with the principles of Qualified to Love. Qualified to Love terminology. Love efficacy. Love efficacy is a qualified to love term, which simply means your current ability to choose and grow whole, functional, effective, authentic, loving, and passionate relationships. To judge your level of love efficacy may be difficult, but it can be directly tied into your current level of growth in self-worth, self-love, self-mastery, and emotional intelligence. All of these foundational pieces lend to the whole of your ability to choose and grow, the whole of love efficacy. Love efficacy. You're listening to Qualified to Love.
And welcome back to Qualified to Love. I'm Sabrina.
I'm Ricardo Love. And yes, that really is my real name. I just didn't make it up. It's not a moniker. It's my real legal name.
Ricardo, on the last segment, you were talking about negotiables and non-negotiables. And something I want to bring to the listeners' attention is that a lot of times we have very, very high standards as men, very, very high standards as women on what we want. And it has to be exactly this. And I also think that people should think about sometimes the things that we want, they're really way out there as far as
being
what
realistic.
Realistic things you want from another person. And you got to also remember that in wanting these things from another person, what are you giving of yourself?
And what do they want? And you, if you want something, you want somebody that looks like, I don't know who's in my generation, women was Denzel Washington.
Yeah.
At Shamar Moore, depending on what your taste is. So whoever today's version of the most attractive woman or man, or Beyonce, is the attractiveness to them more valuable than their high character? You know, we need to ask ourselves, if we're not teenagers, or some of us may be listening being teenagers, but we needed to ask ourselves, what is really important qualities that make somebody qualified to love you? And the other aspect I want to get into is, not only do you need to make sure that they are qualified to love you, we stress that you need to be qualified to love them before you even seek. So what we're talking about in being qualified to love is not being perfect. However, We based it on the foundation of first having self-worth, self-love, and self-mastery, and having those things to a level of functionality. What we find is the childhood wounds, the past relationship wounds, and societal wounds. And that's why we talked about African American, Black experience. Everybody has to deal with childhood wounds and past relationship wounds, but we have a special kind of societal wound that comes against us in our relationships, and it's just something that we have to grow above. So becoming to a level before you even think about wanting to be in a relationship with somebody else. Like I said, anybody can love, but are you qualified to love? And if you get into love and without being qualified to love, we see the result will be broken homes, it will be broken hearts, it will be broken communities. So the most revolutionary thing you can do in the Black community is love a Black woman or a Black man the correct way. And to do that, you have to first love yourself the correct way. We don't have specifics on what that means, because that'll mean different things to different people. However, there are certain things that are empirical in loving oneself. And we're going to get into that in future conversations. We're going to go into specifics. Right now, we're just talking about general things, self-worth. What does that mean? Self-love. What does that mean? Self-mastery. What does that mean? These are all topics that you could do multiple shows about each individually, but we're just talking about the in general part.
But what about the person who says, how can childhood wounds, how could trauma from what I did when I was young, how could that affect it?
So how it shows up, let's say you were a child and your parents never listened to you. They never gave you a voice. And if you grew up in I say 40 above, you probably grew up with traditional parents. Back then, parenting wasn't, the child is to be seen, not heard. So you didn't care what you said. Do as I say, not as I do. And, need to check in with your feelings or anything like that. So from that generation, what happens is you didn't feel heard as a child. So when somebody cuts you off or somebody doesn't seem like they're hearing what you're saying, it's a trigger. And the trigger makes a overreaction. You're putting a 10 on a 2, so to speak. So because you're triggering a childhood when you didn't feel heard as a child, so now I don't feel heard now. And maybe that person doesn't really mean it. They're just trying to get their point across and they're cutting you off and stuff, but it just triggers you, it just irks you. And there's like 100 of these kind of childhood wounds that, you weren't heard. If you were a man, you weren't allowed to express your feelings. Oh, you're a big boy, you don't cry. So how do you expect a man to feel certain things if he can't cry? He's supposed to just shut up and suck it up because he's trying to be a man. He's not a boy. And so he never learned how to express his feelings truly and sincerely and to work through his emotions, because little boys got emotions just like little girls do. And we weren't allowed to do that, particularly in the Black community, because the legacy of slavery, some of us, and I say some of us, but it's very common. We were beat like runaway slaves for doing things, and some of us still, we like, well, that's why we didn't go through this new generation, because my mama used to beat me. We revel that was a good thing. Now, discipline is a good thing, but just to, with extension cords and race car tracks and branches off of trees, switches, they call them. That was not necessarily a good thing. The converse opposite of, now Johnny, and don't do it. No discipline, we see how that works either. So there's a balance of seeing why the child did what he did and working with them and teaching them about consequences and repercussions of stuff without necessarily capital punishment would work. So we can get into that's a whole nother subject as well. Suffice to say, certain things that happened to us, traumas in our childhood, it might not even been our parents, it might have been bullied as a child. I was bullied for being light-skinned. On one side, I was, oh, he's so cute, he got good hair. On the other side, I was tormented by older boys that literally tried to beat me up because you think you cute or whatever. It was absolutely ridiculous. And these childhood things continue on into adulthood. It's not like we went through therapy to get rid of them.
Well, then there's you're different. You talk different. You act different.
So you grew up in, was it England?
I grew up in all over, Holland, England, Germany, and had various accents, various ways of talking. I think my eye-opening experience would have been moving to Chicago, where
the hood.
Where I just thought it was awesome to be around so many Black people who treated me so badly because I talked different.
How did you talk back then?
All jumbled because I had so many different accents, and I would be saying, I don't understand, and they'd be like, what is she saying? And my poor sisters, they'd be like, Mom, they say we talk funny. And she would say, no, you don't. And I was like, yes, we do. And so, being in Georgia, that wasn't cool at all. Being in Chicago, that wasn't cool because you were either put on display, talk to them, say something, and we were just different. We weren't raised with a lot of the struggles because we were military brats. And we paid a heavy price for it, still to the day.
So your childhood experience, whether they're traumatic, and we're talking about childhood wounds, but even if they're not wounds, just your experiences definitely affect how you do things, how you interact with people today, your compatibility relationships. Now, certain they say opposites attract. Sometimes it'd be like, I can't even relate to you. So childhood definitely has it. Past relationship wounds. Like for women, and now a lot for men, constantly being lied to, constantly being cheated on. We talking a good game, but here you go again. I don't even believe you. I have to work with a lot of women. You have to work through all these layers of mistrust. And it's earned. Some of us guys, man, player. So we're going to talk about past relationship wounds when we come back.
We'll be right back.
You're listening to Qualified to Love.
And welcome back to today's episode of Qualified to Love. I'm Bree.
I'm Ricardo Love, and we're talking about past relationship wounds. So unless you were one of those lucky people, and they are out there, some of our parents were, they had their first real love in high school, and for some reason, they got lucky and they found the love of their life, their soulmate on that first go round, and they've been together for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. That is a rarity. Most of us have went through some kind of bad relationship. There's a video meme going around now, this little Latino boy, and it starts off with him talking about his crush with this girl and he's all happy, and he's just ecstatic. He's in love, or he's infatuated at least. And then he comes back, they flash and they cut to, what happened, little Johnny, whatever his name is, and he's crying, and she said, she left me for whatever this other little boy's names. And so this little girl was playing both of these little boys. That's his first heartbreak. And who knows, is that gonna make him a player? Is that gonna make, or is he just kind of like a hopeless romantic like me, and he's gonna try again and again until he gets it right? It affects like the same traumatic experience. That's the other thing about the human brain, is so complex. The same thing that happened to you may happen to your brothers and sisters in the same household, same kind of dynamics going on, same environment, and it can affect you guys entirely different. So your mission for yourself is to check in and see, when experiences happen to you, why am I feeling this way? Is it just about the experience that happened? Is it just about the what happened? Or is it also about what happened to me in the past and how it affects me, how I feel about it, how I haven't dealt with these things, how I haven't processed these emotions? And if you haven't processed these things, and if you haven't dealt with these things, they have a profound effect upon you. They become programs. And just like a computer, there are programs that are running in the background, and you think you're making a decision. You think that you're making these choices, but really their programs are making choices for you, because it's in your subconscious, and sometimes it's right on the surface. You just like, I can't stand that when this happens because this happened to me. And I mean, it could be something like you had a traumatic experience with a dog. I don't care how they tell, he's friendly, he won't bite. But for you, every dog is a potential threat. I don't want to find out if he bite or not. And so why do we think that's just isolated? This also happens with us with past relationship wounds, and as we talked about earlier, in childhood wounds.
It does. It really does. And I don't think people really think about it that way. So what we're trying to do is we're going to actually try to do examples and give questions that you can think about. And maybe somewhere in here, call in and talk to us.
That sounds wonderful. Because again, we're trying to figure this out together. So very soon in coming episodes, we'll open up for calls, and maybe we'll pre-tape them and then chime them in. We'll figure out how we're going to do that. Wonderful thing about versions of group therapy is that when somebody's sharing their experience about what happened to them, you can so relate to them, or you can learn from their experience. We don't all have to go through the same traumas the same way, but we all can learn from each other. And in the African tradition, us as Black people, the village was always our strength. And now, because the village is just so individualized and everything, that we don't have that strength to draw on, or even worse, the village, as Sabrina talked about earlier, can be so wounded that the village, the one that you ran to, and she came to from England and from overseas, and having this different experience and coming to the Black community, and those wounded people wounded her even more. So we need to make sure that the villages that we create around us, our support systems, are healing and are beneficial to us. And that's part of the self-love process. So that's a whole nother show too. How much you're gonna let the outside environment affect you and your own healing and your own growth and your own growth process, and being a victim to that, or being in a position to choose healthier environments.
Qualified to Love is all about learning more about yourself, learning more about your partner, your potential partner, who you think you might want for your partner, what you have to offer. Are you damaged? Are they damaged? Are we all damaged?
We're all damaged. Just say that right off the bat. But being aware to the extent that you are, and what are you doing to your trinity of self, your mind, your body, your spirit. What are you doing to be a better human being and to be a better mate? How are you making yourself lovable, not only to your mate, but to yourself? Do you stand yourself? Michael Jackson talked about looking at the man in the mirror. Are you really looking at the man in the mirror? And then there's a negative part of that is being overly critical. And so it has to be balanced. Anytime you are going to look at yourself in a critical mirror, it has to be with the objective of taking charge and choosing healing. And the immediate answer for that healing might not be in front of you. But if you keep your eye on the North Star, which is your self-love and the love for your mate, you'll find the way, and God will show you the way.
So, Ricardo, before we close out for today, can you tell the listeners how they can get information on Facebook?
Facebook and Instagram we are still active on. Qualified, the number 2, love. And you can add LoveShop to that. The LoveShop is the way that we take this concept and put it into a construct to be accountable to the growth with intentionality, how we grow. Because we can philosophize all day long, pontificate all day long about what we need to do and da-da-da-da-da. But there's specific tools that you can engage in for growth, and that we have a number of those tools, and you can pick them like a smorgasbord, what appeals to you, what resonates to you. And if you come on our Facebook page, we post the tools for free. And we have a wonderful tool called the Getting to Know You Experience. It's a due diligence compatibility game. You can currently get it on payhip/qualified2love. That's the paid version. It's only, I think, $2. However, you come to us on Facebook and we'll give you a free version along with a bunch of other tools.
We'd like to thank you for taking the time out to hang out with us today, and we look forward to talking to you again soon. So in the meantime, go to our Facebook page and check us out. This is Bree.
And Ricardo Love.
Signing off.
Peace, love, and blessings.
Uncle Mario, Total Media.